Well, Todd, that little thing in the corner says we're live.
It does, right?
Q&A Wednesday, your daily Scrum live with professional Scrum trainers Todd Miller and Ryan Ripley. That's Todd. I'm Ryan. We're going to give everybody just a second to join us here in the live stream. Today's all about taking your questions. And so as the questions start showing up in the comment sections, regardless of what platform you're on, we can see your comments. So if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, go ahead and give us your questions and we'll start firing away with answers. But we'll let that fill up for a second.
Maybe I don't know that we did a really great job of promoting this one, so we'll see what happens.
But while that's getting front loaded, we can definitely talk about a few things here. Be sure to check out the membership section. We are releasing deeper into Scrum each and every week, or at least some new exclusive video that only subscribers can get. So check that out. Be sure to check out the link in our description to all the classes that Todd and I teach. If you want to spend 2 days with Todd and I working towards your certification or enhancing your Scrum knowledge, I'll post a comment out there.
I think it may be also good to say that we're going to have some new stuff dropping there soon. With Pratik.
Yeah. So Pratik will be joining us from Drunk Agile and Pro Kanban. So there'll be some cool stuff going on as well.
More on that, TBD.
I see questions popping in, Todd. Maybe we should start. Cool. Here's a nice one from Ryan. What are your thoughts on tracking business value as a metric similar to velocity? Oh, I'm being taunted, Todd. Business value is certainly a metric that we believe you should measure. Todd and I prefer evidence-based management, EBM. So current value is a big part of a consideration that we have when we're working on products and we're thinking about how our products are doing. And we actually track that quite extensively for our own work. And so we see business value as, look, why are we even here doing stuff if you can't measure business value? So this is table stakes. You have to be looking at value continually. We just think it's important to put that in the context of other business considerations like ability to innovate, time to market, and unrealized value, even some of the opportunities that you're not capturing. As far as velocity goes, there's better metrics out there. Dump velocity as quickly as you can. Pick up, give you a few ideas here. Cycle time, throughput, whip limits, and item age. It'll serve you a lot better than velocity, keep you out of trouble. But as far as your primary question, business value is critical. Todd, what would you add to that?
So this is my interpretation in this question. I think that some people have business value as an attribute of a product backlog item. Let's keep in mind there, if you're saying on a scale of 1 through 5, how much business value do we think this is going to give us? Let's keep in mind that that's perceived business value. That's not actual business value. That's the business value that we think it's going to deliver. And so think and actually deliver are two different things. So I would be very cautious in saying this is how much business value that we've delivered during this sprint, because that's only perceived business value. Well, Ryan was mentioning current business value and EBM, evidence-based management. That's actually what we delivered, because just because you output something, you create something and give it to your customers does not mean that they're going to use it. Does not mean that it gives you value, right? And so I'm assuming that you're saying that there's an attribute on your product backlog items that is business value. Let's really, really make sure that we understand that that is perceived business value. This is the perception of the business value that we delivered. And then when I see velocity, that's what I think might have been going on there. I honestly don't think it's going to tell you much. I probably would be more inclined to just make sure that we're validating what we delivered and it was actually useful to our customer. Yeah,
and I think that's the big thing too. And the way that you frame the question, Todd, then validated business value would be far more important than any kind of magical number you come up with. Perceived is interesting. The validated is what every product owner should be striving to measure. And EBM can help in that respect.
Yeah.
Great question, Ryan. Thanks for bringing that forward. We hope you're doing great. Kyle Nicholas. So that name is familiar. Can you tell us more about the new facilitation course? So professional Scrum facilitation skills course. It's a one-day class where you learn about facilitation in the context of being a Scrum Master. And so you look at the various attributes of facilitation, some of the things that happen when you're trying to facilitate, especially to when you're facilitating ideas and to consensus. There's a peek at some of the Scrum events and looking at ways that you can facilitate those to be more effective. Todd, you're actually one of the co-creators of this course. How would you describe it for Kyle and the rest of our viewers?
So here's a trick with a course like facilitation skills course is that there are so many different facilitation techniques. You know, you have liberating structures, you have things from training from the back of the room, you have things from design thinking, you have just all random facilitation techniques all over the place. You can't wrap that up into a 1 or 2 half-day class, right? And so what this course is all about is improving as a facilitator. And we do introduce techniques in that class that you may or may not have heard of, but it's more about the practices and principles of a facilitator. Just something as simple as considering a facilitator, and we did a video on this, and some people don't like my stance on it, but saying that you can facilitate and participate in the same time is something to consider, because being a facilitator and a participant and being neutral is near impossible. And so we dive into things like that. There's some situations there as it relates to Scrum that we put people in. It's really an engaging course. It's all about improving you as a facilitator, regardless of whether you're whether you're a seasoned facilitator or a new facilitator. Is for everybody. It's not just about techniques, though. That's how I would classify it. It's much more and much deeper than that.
Very good. Yeah, it's a great course. The principles are important. Understanding that as a facilitator, what you're actually trying to achieve. And then I think that gives you the ability, confidence, and at some point, the skills to apply all of these tools that everybody gets fixated on, right? So I think you're learning the craft of facilitation. Then to Todd's point, then you can start looking at tools and other things, and very powerful. It's a great day. And we hope all of you join us in that course.
Yeah, you know what I always think of when I think of the way we describe it is I think about a facilitation technique that was used by a facilitator not well, right? And so that's what we're trying to improve upon, those kinds of things.
Very good. I watched your videos and they helped me for my interview prep. Awesome. Congratulations. We hope you get the job and that you do great. Yeah, glad the videos were helpful. There's a question here, John, that I think from John C, that could, Todd, I think this is right up your alley. EBM goals and quarterly planning. How can we get those to work together well? I want goals to live outside of the boundary if it has to, but placing targets can still be motivating. I have a feeling this is about the various levels of goal setting in EBM. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah. I just was like deep diving in my brain on this. So this might be a good time to ask that question. So in EBM, we have strategic, intermediate, and immediate tactical goals, each with longer, as I said, longer time horizons: strategic, long-term, intermediate, near-term, immediate tactical, short-term, right? Those 3 levels of goals. When I start to think of planning, right, I start to think of quarterly planning. I think that we're probably getting married to our plans there. So if I were talking in terms of like a quarter, 3 months, 3 to 6 months, that's why I really like to think of a goal that is that intermediate goal length, 3 to 6 months. Now, that's not an evidence-based management guide. That's what I like. That's what I've arrived at. So intermediate goal would relate to a 3 to 6 month horizon, right? Your plans can and will go wrong. You might have an immediate tactical goal that changes the way that your intermediate goal is structured. You might have an immediate tactical goal that invalidates it or that solves it. So remember, the plans are good, but not always something that is going to come into fruition. So evidence-based management is all about empirically looking at different goal horizons and constantly evaluating and asking yourself the questions: is this a good goal? I would say quarterly planning. If you're using quarterly planning, I would change that into evaluating on a quarterly basis your intermediate goals and seeing if your immediate tactical goals are helping to achieve that. When I think of quarterly planning, I'm thinking something more like we're making these plans and absolutely following them to no avail, no matter what happens. I might be wrong there. That's just the assumption that I'm getting from that. EBM is all about empiricism as it relates to 3 different levels of goals. How is that for a rant, Ryan? Did I do okay?
I think as far as rants go, that's pretty good.
I do have a little bit of a medicine head. So if I'm all over the place right now, you can hear I'm a little bit congested. I'm just getting over the flu. It could be that. That's my excuse of the day though, Ryan.
But I think that's a great way to look at this. How do we get EBM goals and quarterly planning to work? And hopefully EBM becomes that thing that informs that planning, and maybe it even nudges planning to happen more frequently. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that could be a great shift as well. Mm-hmm. All right. Sarah has left us a question here. Very good question. Just moved over to a defense program that is an extremely controlled environment, but they want more agility. Any experience or tips working in this type of environment? So I've worked in heavily regulated environments, more medical device and finance, although we have worked with one of the major defense contractors here in the U.S. And all I can say is it's the automation of testing and validation that really allowed us to move forward quickly. It's it's making things that have to occur before any kind of release or any kind of approval step automated, and in being willing to invest in that, right? So I think that is a major step. And I'll give you an example. In the medical device industry, especially, packaging is heavily regulated. What goes on the label and where that information is placed and how it's expressed and what the graphics are with it. And so working with a design team to basically say, if we use this base design for a label, can we skip a number of these steps because we know we're going to be in compliance with these laws? And the answer is yes. And so once we had that general layout, we never violated it. Now they would still join us on some reviews, but we were able to streamline that because we could template things. We could find if you can check these 10 boxes, you get a fast track. It's a lot of automation and standardization. And so those are not bad words. Those are good words. I think the other thing that I would do, or other things that I have done in this space, I've invited our validation, our legal, our compliance, all of these different groups into the Scrum events where appropriate. So in this case, I think inviting them to sprint planning and sprint review could be important, showing them what you're going to be working on, and then showing them what you did so that you can keep them informed so that they can plan their runway for working with you through approvals and phase gates and all those steps. I think those two things are really critical. Todd, what have you seen throughout your more regulated parts of your career?
Yeah, for some reason, this question had me think of, I was working and spoke with a gentleman that was building software for submarines. And we got into the conversation around validating whether something was valuable or not. And he was like, I don't get any data on it for like a year and a half. I get the software back after a year and a half. And then we look and we assess, but that's as good as I can do. And that's just as good as you can do sometimes, right? Obviously, you'd like a feedback loop to be a little bit quicker to understand whether something was valuable, whether there were bugs or were problems, but you just got to smash that time frame down as much as possible. I just thought of that from like a product management perspective, thinking like you don't get any data on whether something was valuable or not for a year and a half. So I think that just doing the best you can with it, and then never forgetting to validate, even if it is some time later, what worked and what didn't from a product perspective, regardless of what environment you're in, thinking about it from that perspective it will be helpful. Yeah.
We hope that helps, Sarah, and good luck in your new program. It sounds like that's an exciting opportunity, and we hope you do great.
Hey, Ryan, you know what I forgot to show you?
What's that?
To show you my new phone case.
No, what'd you get?
Check that out.
Darth Vader. Hey, did I show you mine?
Oh, no. I shouldn't have prompted this.
I love this phone case. It's amazing. Available at the Agile for Humans store. Check it out. All right. Our good friend Zach wants to know
What's up,
PSPO2 course soon. What's up, Zach? Yes, keep an eye on our schedule. One should be popping up soon. We'll let you know. Mm-hmm. Missy is joining us. She caught a live. Such fangirl, Missy. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. It's awesome to see you in the chat. Greetings from Hungary. Greetings back to Hungary. Welcome. Thank you for being here. All right, Todd, here's a question. Best up-to-date book on agile software development for a Scrum Master wannabe. Well, I can think of one really good book.
Fixing Your Scrum.
Fixing Your Scrum, of course. Where's that copy? It's just out of reach, but I should be holding up a copy saying Fixing Your Scrum. That's one of my favorites, of course. I think it really depends on what you want to do. If you're trying to learn to be a Scrum Master, read the Scrum Guide, check out Fixing Your Scrum. It guards you against a lot of the errors and issues that come up early and often in a newish wannabe type career. I think the other one, Todd, that had a big impact on me is Jeff Watts's Scrum Mastery. Mm-hmm. That's really a great mindset book. So I think between Fixing Your Scrum and Scrum Mastery, you're going to get a lot of good information that will then help you go out and be more practical. Can I give one more suggestion? Like if you want to go outside of the books, check out our YouTube channel. There's like 500 videos on Scrum and Kanban and metrics and plenty of materials to keep you busy forever. So between those three things, I think you're good. Todd, I know you've got some favorite books out there too.
Yeah, I'm just going to give two others. Our good friends Simon and Stephanie wrote a book, Mastering Professional Scrum. Yep. That's a really good. That's a really good book. Scrum: A Pocket Guide by our friend Gunther Verheen is really awesome. It's been around for a while. What's Hiren's book too? Hiren Doshi.
Scrum for Practitioners, I think.
Yeah, Scrum Insights for Practitioners.
It was close. Yeah. Hiren Doshi wrote a really good book there too.
Yeah, so I would just add those three: Scrum Insights for Practitioners, Scrum: A Pocket Guide, and then Mastering Professional Scrum.
Yeah, lots of good books. Great question. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to easily plug the Fixing Your Scrum.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let's see here. Pro Kanbans, applying metrics for predictability versus PAL EBM, and PSK versus Kanbans, applying professional Kanban. I'm looking to learn more about flow metrics to use with Scrum and Kanban. Interesting question here. I'll take one, Todd, and then maybe you can have the other if you feel so inclined. PSK versus applying professional Kanban. The PSK talks about Scrum, applying professional Kanban doesn't. That would be the key difference between the two courses. A lot of the Kanban concepts and some of the flow metric discussions are the same, but the PSK includes Scrum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as far as the AMP, applying metrics for predictability, and PAL EBM, those are two very different things. Evidence-based management is its own framework, right? We really like the flow metrics for an answer to one of the key value areas in evidence-based management. That's time to market. So if you were considering evidence-based management, you got a good foundational ideas what's happening there. I would recommend AMP as a separate step for you to understand really good ways to implement time to market metrics for underneath that. But those are two very different classes. I think that they work really well with each other. I think if you understand AMP and you understand EBM, that's really beneficiary, but very different classes. So two different things, but they do work well together.
Very good. Let's see. Josh is back with another question. This is a good one. Hot question of the day. How do you measure the success of a team? I think it's number of story points completed per sprint. What do you think, Todd?
No.
Oh, wait, hold on a minute. Story points are trash.
Oh boy.
Just kidding. It's not story points per sprint. That would be a terrible way to do it. What do you think, Todd? How would you measure the success of a team? We're going to assume Scrum team just to narrow this in a little bit.
Well, this question's asked a lot, and my mind's so into evidence-based management right now for a multitude of reasons, and I think about these questions when I think about the effectiveness of a team. I think about their ability to innovate, right? What is enabling or disabling this team from being able to deliver new things? Is there a lot of tech debt? Do we have a lot of bugs? Right. And then another side of this is how quickly can we get something out there? Time to market, right? So that's delivery capabilities. You could be really good at both of those and have a customer that's not satisfied. You could have people that don't use what you're building. So I think that how do you measure the success of a team is kind of a little bit of a loaded question. Just because a team is really, really busy and producing a lot of things does not mean that they're effective. It does not mean they're successful. I would put it more towards the success of a team is them constantly being able to fulfill outcome-oriented business objectives for a customer. And how you are going to do that, engage that, is on a product-by-product basis. But measuring a success of a team, I guess my warning would be using it just as a means of how quickly they are outputting a lot of things, I think is driving the wrong behaviors. Do not key in on that. I think holistically, again, evidence-based management, the 3 different levels of goals, how we measure in accordance with those, and how we're constantly moving and adapting is how you would ultimately measure the success of their team, which means that people are using your stuff and customers are happy.
Yeah, and I think a byproduct of that would be the achievement of sprint and product goals, right? And validating the value of those things. And so, yeah, avoid the busyness trap, avoid the feature factory, focus on external outcomes like Todd mentioned, and you can probably start building with a framework like EBM some concept of success and seeing whether that success is ebbing and flowing and how to incrementally increase that success, sprint over sprint. Well done. Thank you, Josh. Great question. Jefferson's back saying the new facilitation course is awesome and it's highly recommended. Yeah, we like it too. Here we go. Justin, here we go. I'm getting taunted, Todd. I'm getting provoked. Do you see a problem with dev supervisors asking for reports tracking how many story points each member contributes to a sprint?
Yes.
Major red flag. Major problem.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we talk about the way that behavior is structured in an environment impacts people's behavior. One of the things is what we're measuring. This is not a team if you're individually tracking story points. I cannot tell you how reckless of a metric I think that is for management to implement. You're not driving a team. These are all the reasons why Ryan is on his story points are stretched thing, because this has just continued to happen in office environments, right? This is like saying, Ryan, let's put a metric on us, right? Just humor me here. Who talks faster? Let's say that we were measured upon our performance review as on who talks faster. What do you think would happen?
Yeah, it would be terrible.
It would be gibberish, and it wouldn't produce anything of value for anybody, right? Yeah. And so even saying that silly example, story points per particular team member is even more arbitrary than that and damaging as far as behavior is concerned. You're pitting teammates against each other. It's a really poor thing to do. It doesn't work. And the evils of velocity are all talked about out there for a team. You do this on an individual basis, and you're just even pouring gasoline on a fire.
I've been really enjoying a book that's been out for a while. And I mean, Doc Norton's a good friend of mine. I should have read it a lot sooner, but Escape Velocity by Doc Norton. And he's got a quote in here. I hope he doesn't mind. Hopefully the book plug means I can read a few sentences about this. Measuring individual velocity fails to give us a complete picture. It likely gives us the wrong impression. People who help others will likely have lower velocity numbers. People who get pulled off of their work to work on different issues like productions and bugs will likely have lower velocity numbers. So this big idea here is that it just hides a lot of things, and it could actually, to Todd's point, provoke behaviors that are against teamwork, right? So if we're measured off of individual velocity, why would I ever help somebody and risk my numbers? Or why would I ever jump into action to work on a bug that may not have points on it? Because then suddenly my review is going to be worse. Those are just a few. It tears apart. If Todd and I were to track individual story points, week over week, it could provoke a fight, right? It could provoke something that that these anti-team things. Todd and I are in it together with Agile for Humans, right? We ebb and we flow. We work together. We collaborate. We cooperate. We do all these great things. This feels like it could be a wedge. And I've actually seen it turn into a wedge between people who used to work together well. But I think it's interesting that Doc specifically calls out this anti-pattern. I know many other authors have as well. This is a massive, massive issue. Avoid this if you can.
Yeah, all costs.
Let's see here. Another. All right. So Luis is continuing the story point trend. Hey guys, a question. We know that you dislike story points mostly because it can be misused when comparing teams, and then suggest throughput. Wouldn't the same happen with throughput? Let me go after the premise of the question real quick. Comparing the velocity or the story points between teams is not. It wouldn't make the top 10 list of reasons why I dislike story points. It is one of the many side effects, like comparing individual velocity, that happens, but it's not really high on my list of reasons why. I think story points fundamentally are flawed. They've warped and mutated into something that they were never intended to be. We have videos out there on the YouTube channel that really dig deeper into that. So I'm not going to go too much further there. But the question is, could you manipulate or abuse the throughput flow metric? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You absolutely could.
Yeah. And I think the heart of this question is you could absolutely take throughput and make a deterministic forecast, and teams picking up on that and driving behavior to increase throughput because of a deterministic forecast, right? So I think that's really the heart of this issue, is a deterministic versus probabilistic forecast. All the same things that could happen with velocity, that do happen with velocity, could happen with throughput. And I think we need to really work on avoiding that. What you get with the flow-based metrics is not necessarily, or the pretense behind it is not necessarily taking something like throughput and averaging it. It's a really poor idea to do that. You're averaging it and coming up with a deterministic forecast, negatively drive behavior.
Yep.
What we want with that, though, is throughput can give us a probabilistic forecast, which means each estimate, as you will be associated with some kind of probability of it happening. So yes, the same thing could happen with throughput. However, I think there's hope. The way that I view it is that these things that have been hanging around for a long time, it's like, Ryan, I haven't put this past you yet, but here's what I have been thinking, is it's almost like how we've evolved to listen to music, right? At one point it was just the radio, and then we had records, and then we had cassettes, and then we had CDs, right? And now we have streaming services, right? Now I know records are a trendy thing, right? It's cool to go be a record collector out there. But how many of you all are going out and purchasing cassettes right now? It's an archaic way of listening to music. The quality isn't as high. The accessibility isn't as high, where you have to rewind, so it's not instantaneous when you want to get back to that song. We move on as people using products. We need to move on from things from a process perspective. There's new and better ways of doing it. Yes, we need to avoid all the same things that we've learned with velocity and story points. We really do. We need to avoid that with things like cycle time and throughput, because the exact same stuff can happen. But there's a new way and a better way of talking about those things. We need to talk. And to me, the heart of the issue is deterministic versus probabilistic in forecasting. So long rant, medicine rant for you there, Ryan.
No, but I think it's good. I like the analogy that the flow metrics are really the HD version of what we're doing. And if you want to go back to antenna TV, great. You know, the old the low-fi, low quality picture, but there's better ways, and that's what we're pushing. Along with, to your point, Louise, some of the anti-patterns that pop up, we are trying to avoid. Perhaps story points are more prone to these abuses, and but we're working through that. We're pushing to bring the flow metrics forward, and we hope that the community embraces this idea and joins us, or that we hope that they join us on this push forward. Thank you for the question. Here we go, Todd. Here's another question that comes up quite a bit. El Musico is a active member in the community, so thanks for being here. Companies changing the name of Scrum Master to Team Coach due to the master negative connotation. I'm a believer of not changing the name of the roles in the events. Success in details. Your take. So I'll give a take here. If you are in an environment where that shift will lead to more inclusive behaviors and allow people to fully express themselves as professionals, and it leads to successful delivery, I'm not going to argue with it. On the flip side, I also think that it is if we can have consistent language about what we're doing, I think that's really important too, right? So if you're going to do this, it can't be halfway. If you're going to change it to Team Coach, do it through the org and don't look back. That consistency in language is really important. I also think it's interesting that some industries are choosing to do this and others are not. If you look at education, for example, there's still a master's degree. I'm actually pursuing one right now, and questions have been asked to various universities, and they're not switching this. By and large, if you look at, so I'm in Indiana, right? So the big schools, IU, Purdue, someone's going to be mad at me for not saying Butler or Ball State or whatever school I missed. I apologize. They all have master's degrees available, and they have not moved away from that stance. And so I'm more ambivalent about this. I want people to be included. I want people to have the ability to show up fully as professionals. And at the same time, there's some industries that are looking at this and some that aren't. And so, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Todd, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think there's an official statement out there from scrum.org and reference to the Scrum Guide. And because I know there were some questions, and we could probably dig that up and send that out. I feel the exact same way you do, Ryan, right? But I think there might be an official statement out there.
There is a statement, but ultimately it's up to Ken and Jeff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they control the Scrum Guide, and we teach professional Scrum, which adheres very strongly to the Scrum Guide. So that's pretty much where we're at. But good luck with the change, and we hope that things play out well in your organization. Let's see here. Let me see if I can grab another question here real quick.
I'd sing, but I don't have a voice for radio, Ryan.
Yeah, this is interesting. El Musico again. One of the teams I collaborate with struggles making sprint goals. I've coached the team and the PO multiple times, but the PO is insistent that everything is important. They get frustrated every time I bring it up. Very common anti-pattern, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to order anything. I don't want to fit it into some kind of business outcome. Just get everything done. Mm-hmm. Todd, I know you've seen some of these things in a product owner situation. What are your thoughts?
So I want to. This might be worth a one-on-one conversation for your product owner. What's causing them to behave this way? I don't know the whole context, but I might try at first to take an empathetic approach to understand what is the pressure for them to have everything get done so quickly. If it's a mindset, then you got to shift it, right? And I think that talking in terms of things being experiments and only everything on the product backlog being hypothetical value until we validate it by shipping, could be an interesting conversation. And then start talking about how limiting work in progress can help us increase our ability to ship things more quickly. But I'd want to get to the root of the problem as to why they're frustrated. Are they getting a lot of pressure from above to just ship a whole bunch of stuff? One of my favorite questions to ask when it comes to product management is, can we all be really, really busy and our customers be unhappy? And then secondary to that is, can we be outputting a lot of things and none of those things be valuable? So I might ask the product owner that, but my first inclination here is to understand why they're being so insistent. Is there pressure the outside of your purview that's causing it? That's just what's on my mind today. There's a lot of pressure on product owners, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to approach the conversation. Not as, hey, you're wrong and I got to fix you. It's, hey, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the pressure? Like, what is it about this situation? And maybe there's just from the top, it's, hey, all 30 of these things got to be done. There's no discussion about it. Go make it happen. And if that's the case, then you're in a neat situation that you're going to have to partner with this product owner and really work through. What should happen in a Scrum environment, and Todd was alluding to and hitting on a number of these things too, that each and every sprint's an opportunity to maximize the value of the work being performed by the Scrum team. Mm-hmm. And so as a product owner, new ideas, new insights, especially as we're validating value, should be happening each and every sprint. And so I would be skeptical that everything on the backlog is important. I would be very skeptical. And in fact, I would encourage this product owner to embrace empirical process control, embrace strong stakeholder relationships, and realize that new ideas are going to come in as we build and release things. And I think that discussion needs to happen again with a lot of sympathy, a lot of compassion about what they're going through, and do that incrementally. You're not going to win this battle in one discussion. And I think that's where a lot of Scrum Masters make a mistake, Todd. I think they try to sit down and just blast everything out in one chat. And I think this is a multi discussion, relationship building, trust building process that could take weeks or months. And so I'm looking long game here. I'm not trying to go short. Does that make sense?
I think it does. Yeah. Because we tend to throw the Scrum book at them.
Yeah. It's like, hey, this book says you're wrong. Bam. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Probably it's worth to Musico, just like the last one before we move on, understanding the benefits of the focus of goals, right? And relating that to product owner. Another thing too, Ryan, maybe I wonder if they're using product goals. Check that out on Musico. Are you using product goals? Does your product owner have product goals? Is there longer term objectives of the Scrum team? I like 3 to 6 month horizon there. That would relate to intermediate goals on an EBM. Could.
Cool. Hey, this is kind of neat. Todd, Josh uses our daily Scrum questions in their Scrum Master dojo every month. That's kind of cool. Welcome to the dojo.
Yeah, judo chop.
I like it.
Can't be live with us without some stupid jokes.
Welcome to the dojo. I like it. Good. Let's see. Let's get some. Grab a question here. So Zach, I see your question about safe certs. I don't hold any. I don't know. I've never run into this situation, right? So if you're interviewing at places that have safe installed as their scaling framework, I would imagine that that's going to be important in that context. I don't have them. Todd, I'm pretty sure you do not have any safe certs.
I at one time had SPC. I didn't use it. Here's the thing, Zach. What it really comes down to is you're screening for those jobs. You don't have safe certs. If you don't have safe certs and it's a job that you really want, and you're getting denied jobs that you really want, then maybe get it, right? Like it's the vanity of the world to have certifications to me, right? Like we like them because it's validated learning in scrum.org. I know there's a whole contingent of people that hate certs. I can understand their perspective. My perspective is pretty neutral, that it's validated learning. It's an additional step after a scrum.org course for you to maybe pick up on something and self-study and learn something else, right? But I would look at it from a flip perspective. Are you getting denied jobs that you want? And if the answer is yes, then go get them, right? If you're getting denied on jobs and you were questionable about it, I don't know. Anytime I see a job that is hard and fast requiring a certification without even giving you a look, it's probably not a job I want. Right. I mean, if people are only hiring people because it's a CSM and a CSPO versus a PSM or a PSPO, if that's just I don't know, if they're that hard and fast in the paint, I just don't think that, I don't think that it's helpful.
Yeah. I would tend to agree. Todd, do you have any good techniques to slice stories to look like a good sushi? I think it's a fun way of posing it. I know there's well, maybe while you're giving your initial thoughts, there's a post out there that I think is helpful. There's a lot of different ways to do this, right? So you can, you can look at acceptance criteria and try to break it down to one criteria per story. You can look at, of course, we're talking about vertical slicing, right? We don't want to do horizontal slicing. We want vertical slicing. So it's like a slice of sushi. You get a piece of each ingredient in every bite. I think some of these ideas, so there's a lot of schemes. You could do it by persona. You could do it by the data needed to deliver a feature. So there's like data considerations, there's workflow considerations, like different pieces of a workflow could be a logical way to do it. I've also looked at features and I thought, wow, there's a lot of nice to haves, but at the core of the feature, we're trying to do this one thing. A great example of this is Disney Plus when they shipped their initial product without the ability to resume. Right. They decided that first initial slice of their streaming service, like if you start a movie and then you back out of it, you've got to start right back at the beginning. And then they added those features later. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. There's all sorts of different considerations. Neil Killick did a Fixing Your Agile coaching video here on the Agile for Humans YouTube site that it's a great discussion with Neil about slicing user stories into things that are more manageable and that are more focused on value, like trying to make sure that it's always valuable. There could be business rule considerations you could use, different interfaces. Like you could do, all right, this is our mobile, this is our PC, this is our Xbox. I think some people have even used like, here's the happy path, like here's the perfect interaction with our app, and then in later iterations they build out some of the unhappy paths or pieces of that path. So lots of different considerations. I would start with Neil's work, and we've got a great video with him on the YouTube site. Todd, anything you would throw in there?
No, I think that's good. I think that Neil's work's really good to start there.
Yeah, and hopefully we've given you a few ideas to get you started.
There might be a slicing class coming up.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun. Pay attention to our stuff. We might Pratik might be talking about slicing in the future.
I like it. Very cool. Let's see here. Here's a fun one. How should teams size tech debt? Any best practices around it? What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I created a tech debt video a few years ago that yeah, people were pretty upset with it. Some people defended it. So can I tell a quick story? Is that okay, Ryan?
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that I did many years ago was I always just like to visualize things that we say are technical debt. I don't think you can size it. First of all, I don't think you can. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's impossible to. But you can catalog it, and you can attack it and try to pay it back bit by bit. I'm just not sure that it's possible to size it. I mean, if you want a T-shirt size it or something like that to get an idea. But I just there's so many things when it comes to tech debt. You don't know what you don't know until you're in it. But I oftentimes, what I did one time is in a situation where we had a lot of technical debt, had facilitate a session where the developers put anything they could thought of technical debt on pink sticky notes. And then we just pulled them and attacked it bit by bit. And if we'd find new tech debt, we put it up there. So you can catalog it. I'm not sure that you really can size it. I just don't know that it's possible. You could, I guess, look at, we talk about forecasting. You could differentiate work item types as one as tech debt. And then you could see, and you could look at like cycle time and then do some kind of like service level expectation on work items as it relates to tech debt, right? And come up with a probability for when we start it, how often it takes us to finish. So you can come up with like a probabilistic forecast on it. But the most important thing about it is cataloging it and attacking it bit by bit, right? I don't think you're ever really going to size it appropriately.
I think there's probably some ability to innovate stuff here, right? So to your point, Todd, if you start cataloging your tech debt in your product backlog, maybe the ratio of tech debt to new features could be an interesting metric to look at. I'm kind of making that up, but it could
innovation
be interesting.
Rate.
Innovation rate would be good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think there could be some kind of, if you have a lot of historical data, if you can see the trend of cycle time and maybe your trends of throughput, and if you see a decreasing trend over time, maybe that could be attributed partially to the accumulation of tech debt. I think, like Todd said, it could be very difficult to be precise on this, but I think you can definitely get some indicators of tech debt through some of the EBM framework. But I don't know of any best practices around it. I think the best practice, I will give a best practice here. Don't create it in the first place. How about that?
Yeah. Do anything you can to avoid it. And if it's there, catalog it.
Very cool. Oh, here's a fun one, Todd. Hey, Ryan and Todd, do you think there will be an updated version to the Scrum guide this year? We have, so there's a lot of misconceptions and rumors about, well, you guys train for scrum.org and we don't have any insight to this. We're not given, this is Ken and Jeff, and it will be up to them if they believe there's a need to provide further clarity on the Scrum guide. I will say I do love Scrum Guide 2020. It's probably one of my most favorite updates. It eliminated a couple pages and simplified a lot of things. And over time, I've come to really appreciate the product goal and some of the other changes that I initially kind of was like, I don't know. But I think 2020, I think the Scrum Guide's in great shape. I think there's plenty there for us to continue considering and working with. So, but yeah, we have no insight, no heads up. We're not privy to that. That's all Ken and Jeff. And if it happens, we will all learn about that together. Anything else there, Todd? Cool. Let's see.
This is going fast, Ryan. We're at 48 minutes already.
I know. Here's a good question.
I ran out of my Chick-fil-A iced tea.
So that means we got to wrap up soon. Great question here, Todd, that I think I don't know if I'm smart enough to answer this one, but I'm pretty sure you are. Any advice on what could be the first step to start using SLE? I want to move away from story. First of all, nice job wanting to move away from story points. So Todd, what would be a good step to start using SLE in an environment where they want to move away from story points?
Yeah, I wouldn't start with SLE. I would start with, I'd step this the whole way back to start paying attention to work item age.
Yep.
When you introduce something like service level expectation, it really needs to be understood. It's a single item forecast, and it needs to be a single item forecast from a probability perspective. As I was mentioning earlier, deterministic forecasting versus probabilistic forecasting, two very different things. And so to work your team into going to moving more towards the flow-based metrics, I would start with paying attention to work item age during a sprint, assuming that you're using Scrum. So that means from the time that we started something until now, the elapsed time, mostly teams are tracking that in days, right? And then, and I'd start with that. And then after that, you can introduce a cycle time scatter plot and a retrospective and say, let's look at a cycle time scatter plot and see if this gives us any new and better insights. And then eventually work your way into service level expectation. That's just me. I think that it's an easier starting point to start paying attention to work item age as your sprint goes on. I think that it seems to be helpful, and teams are more inclined to do that. And then you can eventually land on things like let's control WIP, those sort of things. But I really like to start with work item age and then work into service level expectation, because it's less, I don't know, of a major start, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great way to get started. It gets the team used to counting things as opposed to, worrying about partial credit on story points and all of that stuff. So I think it's a great low touch way to get into it, and then you expand over time. This is not something you would rush into, right? We are gradually introducing new metrics and ideas, and that's going to adjust the way we make decisions. And so we want to be sure that we're doing that in a very intentional way, and not just dropping a lot of new stuff on top of a team at once, because that will probably lead to an issue. That's actually a good segue, I think, to the last question we're going to take today, Todd. Mm-hmm. I think this one will wrap us up. So Justin agrees, or maybe sees our point with staying away from tracking each member's story points. Starting a discussion with the organization to find better ways to estimate. Mm-hmm. The hot tip that I would give here is that I would not stop doing what you're doing today. I wouldn't refuse that. Like, if they still want story point estimates, I would still continue to do that. I would start tracking metrics alongside of what's currently expected. Mm-hmm. And over time, maybe during sprint reviews or some other appropriate event, start showing how these new metrics are giving us different insights and enabling us to make new and better decisions. When you demonstrate the value of the metric, then you earn the right to have the conversation about eliminating the old metrics. And so I think it's really important to start there, and then you're earning the right to have the conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was in a really heated conversation about this with a director at one point. There's actually, this is actually, I think, Ryan, I told you the story a few times, how I discovered evidence-based management in a conversation really with Trish. And I was having a hard time because this organization was doing just this. And this was, 7 or 8 years ago now. And I was talking to the director about how harmful a behavior it was. I was there to do an agile assessment, right? So I interviewed like 30 or 40 developers, and they dreaded coming to work. And I reported that feedback to this director, and they said that they're just complaining, right? Like, that's just a complaint. And what are different ways that you can have this conversation? What are alternatives, right? Maybe that's maybe look for alternatives. Maybe it is maybe it's carving the conversation to what kind of value are we delivering. That's really what you're after, right? Yep. So I potentially look at that, but the idea, though, is think about the behavioral ramifications that are happening here. Maybe that is a good place to start. Maybe talk to some people and go and try to find a way to have an objective conversation, right? We're not working on things together. Maybe look at how much work you have in progress. We're not working on things together. We're working on things as individuals because of this metric. You could even paint a picture that we talk about in evidence-based management class is, imagine that there's a boss that incentivizes that each individual gets $10 for bug that they catch, right? What do you think the resulting behavior is going to be, right? If you're getting paid an additional $10 bonus for every bug that you catch, you're going to catch a lot of bugs. Heck, you might manufacture bugs just to get the $10. So maybe coming up with some kind of objective, like some kind of story like that, or an objective way to show how this is such a bad behavior. Hey, take an employee satisfaction survey. There you go. Look at that under current value. What's the employee satisfaction? See how that's working.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. All right, as we mentioned, that will be the last question we take today, but we want to make sure we thank everybody for being here. I do see some new questions popped up. Perhaps those will show up in videos in future YDS editions. But we thank you for being here. We thank you for the questions. It's always great that when we show up, that the community shows up just as strong. And so someone mentioned metric shit.
What's up, Will?
Oh no.
And
the spoiler.
Trouble just dropped in.
It's a good thing we're wrapping up. Yes, Will. Flow metrics have come up repeatedly, and there's probably some new phone case out there.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Hey, since Will's here, Will, let's a quick pitch. We'll drop your book in chat. This is our good friend Will. So.
Yeah, we'll put a link to Flow metrics for Scrum teams in the chat here, and we'll put it up here on the video. Yeah.
Make sure to do that. Will's our good friend. Check out the evidence-based management series that we created with Will.
Tons of content that Will's partnered with us here on the YouTube channel. Be sure to check that out. Lots of free stuff here, so we hope that you all take advantage of that. Here, let me. I don't know if I have the link. Will doesn't have the link.
Well, if you would have shut up like a half an hour ago, we would have thrown you in here, right?
Maybe we should do a go live with Will at some point. That could be a fun one.
That's dangerous.
That could be brand risky. Let me grab Will's book. Flow metrics for Scrum teams.
While you do that, thanks again for another great showing up for another great session. A lot of great questions. And as Ryan gets that.
And I will share the.
There you go. We got it.
Right there. Very good book. So Dan Vicanti and Will Seeley worked together to put this together. I think you'll like it. It'll get you started. It actually, back to the question about, starting with SLE, this book will likely reinforce Todd's idea and thought that item age is the place to start. And check out that book. It's a free download. Cool. Well, all right. We're glad that Will came in and extended us out a few minutes, but we are going to wrap this one up. Be sure to join us next week. We're going to continue going live on Wednesdays for as long as people show interest. So keep your questions coming. Until next time, I'm Ryan. That's Todd. We do some scrum.org classes. We do a lot of go lives and videos and content. Check it all out. Let us know what you think. Zach, thanks for becoming a member on the channel. So Matt just subscribed. That's awesome. And we will see everybody next time.